Paraguay, the Intern American Human Rights Court admitted on Monday the claim related to the 2012 coup against Paraguayan former President Fernando Lugo. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the first country in the Caribbean community, CARICOM, to authorize the use of Cuban COVID-19 vaccine Abdala. The Democratic Republic of Congo managed to put an end to a meningitis outbreak that persisted since September in a daring tour de force of will force amid the time of crisis and shortages in the country due to the impact of COVID-19. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Paraguay, the Intern American Human Rights Court admitted on Monday the claims related to the 2012 coup against Paraguayan former President Fernando Lugo. With this decision, the Intern American Human Rights Court resolved to include on its annual report the claim presented by Fernando Lugo in January 2013 in order to determine whether there was or wasn't a violation of due process. The plaintiffs state that several judicial guarantees were transgressed during the overthrowing of Lugo's government, as in the case of some political rights and the principle of equality under the law, among other irregularities. Likewise, the claim reports that the deadlines for the practice of a legitimate defense weren't respected back then when Lugo was removed from presidential office in a political trial before the Congress and the Republic in June 2012. In Argentina, the Fernandez administration signed a new fiscal agreement for the upcoming year with governors from the whole nation. Among several other important points, the document sets the limit for the different tax fees on each jurisdiction and protects the autonomy for the taxing powers of the provinces. Now the details in this report. One district ruled by Macrismo, the 23 governors of the autonomous city of Buenos Aires, excluding Horacio Rodríguez Larrera, signed the new fiscal accord for 2022.
It's a useful consensus, achieved to the correction of balances and privileges in the provinces acting as separate jurisdictions but belonging to one national paradigm. All governors who have signed this accord are self-imposing on their territories' limits in any subsequent raise in taxes.
The goal of the new fiscal agreement is to achieve balance in the tax collecting structure of Argentina's different jurisdictions.
We are taking one more step towards what we've come looking forward, which is to guarantee a balanced growth in the whole country, preserving the autonomy of the provinces and making a stronger federal system. I celebrate this consensus obtained among 23 jurisdictions, the 23 provinces. So coming from there, I thank you a great deal because it helps us a lot. I find it interesting that regarding legal protection, as Wado said, we have a clear vision ahead of us for what kind of fiscal project we want in Argentina.
Though the agreed policy does not authorize the raising of taxes, it grants more legal stability to all the tax-paying sectors and provides stronger assurances for provincial governments.
We've all lived 2 very difficult years. All of us, absolutely all of us who are here, and I'm certain that were it not for these governors here, everything would have been much more difficult in Argentina. So this is the reason why I express to you all my gratitude for the effort, for the cooperation, all that work side by side, and I invite you to keep it up. We have to solve many problems the Argentine citizens have. That is our task. We thank them, and we wish them the best on the new year. Let's keep on working together for a better Argentina.
With the signing of this fiscal policy, the tax fees will have a max cap, granting the provinces the autonomy that the Together for Change government took from these jurisdictions with a consensus signed on 2017.
Carolina Silvestre, TeleSUR, Buenos Aires.
Thank you, Carolina, for this report, and now we continue. The state of emergency issued by the national government in the penitentiary system to control violence gets to an end this Tuesday in Ecuador. The measure was decreed on September 30th by President Guillermo Lasso after a prison riot in the city of Guayaquil that left 119 dead. The state of emergency for serious social unrest was renewed by the president in November after a new situation of violence in the same penitentiary resulted in 68 deaths and dozens of wounded. In both cases, the government's decision allowed the police and armed forces to be mobilized to reinforce security in the country's prisons. The executive informed that despite the end of the measure, the military will continue to guard the prisons. And Barbadians are set to elect a new government in 3 weeks' time. The surprise announcement was made Monday evening by Prime Minister Mia Mottley in national address from Ilaro Court. Mottley revealed January 19, 2022 as the election date, with the nomination day being January 3rd. General elections were constitutionally due to be held in 2023. Mottley led the Barbados Labour Party, the BLP, to a historic 30-0 whitewash of the Democratic Labour Party, the DLP, in the May 2018 general elections. Mottley met with the President of Barbados, Sandra Mason, to ask her to dissolve the parliament with immediate effect and call for new elections, claiming there was division inside the country. The Prime Minister said even though the country was in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, she believed a successful and safe election could be held. A bailiff and 3 other people were killed on Monday in the Haitian capital after an armed attack of 2 buses traveling between Port-au-Prince and Carrefour in the south of the country. According to initial reports, armed individuals opened fire on the vehicles as they drove to Carrefour, a community located on the southern outskirts of the capital. The area under the influence of the gangs is one of the most dangerous in the country and was blocked in the middle of the year by clashes between gangs fights over control. The hostile clashes caused more than 100 civilian fatalities, while almost 20,000 people had to flee the area to avoid being caught in the crossfire. The attack in Mortisant comes as police promised to deploy 10,000 of officers to secure the Christmas and the New Year festivities. We remain in Haiti. Over 3 million people are left without access to drinking water. This is 30% of the country's population. The United Nations International Children's Emergency pointed out that the situation got worse due to August 14th earthquake. The international entity plans to provide drinking water access in 2022, as well as to rehabilitate the installations damaged by the geological disaster to prevent risk and the spreading of contagious diseases. This problem, combined with malnutrition, threatens the lives of millions of Haitians, mainly in the most vulnerable sectors, especially children and pregnant and lactating women. We'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the first country in the Caribbean community, CARICOM, to authorize the use of Cuban COVID-19 vaccine Abdala. The Drug Control Center in Havana authorized Abdala for emergency use in July, after confirming that the results of an initial study conducted by the Genetic Engineering Center found an efficacy rate of more than 92% in the prevention of COVID-19. Cuban vaccine will help raise vaccination rate in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where barely 30% of the population has received at least 1 dose of any anti-coverall vaccine, and just over 23% have completed the immunization scheme. The United States reported an increase in pediatric hospitalizations per week related to COVID-19, under especially aggravated circumstances in 5 states of the nation. In the past 4 weeks, the average number of children hospitalized with COVID-19 rose by 52%, from a minimum of 1,270 cases on November 29th to 1,933 on Sunday, according to an NBC News analysis supported by Human Health Services. Children have been taken into care almost twice more than adults, according to a data survey. The numbers don't specify if the underage patients were vaccinated or if they were eligible for the jobs. The states that most contribute to the spike in the virus in that age sector of the population are Florida, Illinois, New Jersey, New York, and Ohio. The Omicron variant is affecting the world major powers while setting record infection forecast for the beginning of next year. The Omicron variant represents a major setback to the recovery of the world economy, while tourism and other sectors register huge losses. The most evident signs in the United States alone are restaurants that close due to staff contagion, leisure and sport events suspended, as well as thousands of domestic and international flights canceled due to crew reduction. In the country, Omicron already accounts for 3/4 of the infections, with an 83% increase in cases in the last 14 days. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom, France, and Italy are also expecting an increase in the number of infections. The traditional meeting of the heads of state and governments from the Community of Independent States, the CIS, took place this Tuesday in Russia at the initiative of President Vladimir Putin. Heads of state and government of the Community of Independent States will discuss measures to enhance the effectiveness of cooperation and boost socio-economic development at their traditional meeting. The agenda includes an analysis on the results of Belarus presidency over the last year and to discuss problems that affect the former Soviet nations. Putin has described the group as solid in areas of security and economy and has urged for a wider exchange in the battle against coronavirus and the development of COVID drugs. The community was formed in 1991, and since then the ties have been solid, including the creation of common enterprises and projects.
Many things have changed dramatically over the years, but at the same time, I'd like to stress that the creation of this organization was certainly worth it. The integration has been increasing on many tracks and in various aspects, including state security, economy. I have to say that the connections between the countries preserved since the Soviet Union are playing a positive role.
Russia and the United States will hold talks on January 10th over European security and the Ukraine issue after Moscow demanded NATO halt its eastward expansion. The talks will take place in Geneva, where residents and the presidents Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden met for their first summit in June.
But I don't think that our colleagues will get away with some blah, blah, blah thing, as Greta Thunberg puts it. So we really want something serious this time. It's not an ultimatum. It was also underlined several times by my foreign minister and my president. It's a constructive proposal, but it's the proposal that works for everybody and that is in the interest of everybody. It will be early January. As for what we want, I think we also commented on this many times. This is a serious proposal. We want serious guarantees from the United States first and foremost and from NATO. But
in Denver, Colorado, a shooting resulted in 4 people killed and a police officer injured on Monday night. According to Lakewood police officers and reports, the suspect also died after a fire exchange with the officers. The shootings started shortly after 5 p.m. in central Denver, where 2 women were killed and a man was injured. A short time later, a man was fatally shot several blocks away. The wounded officer was undergoing surgery on Monday night, and his condition was not immediately revealed. 2021 was a brutal year for gun violence in the U.S., where communities across the country experienced a heartbreaking increase in homicides and shootings. The rise started in 2020, when homicides rose by 30% from the year before. The increase amounted to an estimated 5,000 additional deaths. The full data for 2021 is not yet available, but the rise appears to have continued, with homicides in cities such as Oakland, Portland, and Detroit continuing to climb. China's foreign ministry said on Tuesday the United States has to abide by the Outer Space International Treaty and take responsible measures to protect the safety of astronauts.
I can responsibly confirm to everyone that in July and October this year, Starlink satellites launched by SpaceX made 2 close encounters with China's space station. During this period, Chinese astronauts were carrying out missions at the space station. Out of safety considerations, the Chinese space station adopted emergency measures to avoid collisions. The US talks about the concept of so-called responsible conduct in outer space, but ignores its obligations under international treaties, posing a serious threat to the lives and safety of astronauts. This is a typical case of double standards.
Now we address other topics. Bolivian authorities report that 70 municipalities and around 10,000 families have been affected by rivers overflow after heavy rains. 15 people have died in the disaster, according to the Vice Minister of Civil Defense, Juan Carlos Calvimontes. The official also said that the daily increase in numbers is of concern. He stated that the most damaged municipalities are Santa Cruz, San Pedro, and Pailon. Rescue teams managed to save 79 people in assistance operations in communities where the heavy rains have done severe damages to houses and infrastructure. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. The Democratic Republic of Congo managed to put an end to a meningitis outbreak that persisted since September in a daring tour de force of willpower amid a time of crisis and shortages in the country due to the impact of COVID-19. A meningitis outbreak was first announced in early September this year in the northeast of the Central African nation. One of 261 cases in that first period, 129 resulted in mortal victims and fatalities for a 50% proportion of deaths per infection. By the time the disease spreading was eradicated, as confirmed by the World Health Organization this week, a total of 2,662 cases and 205 deaths were recorded, with a fatality rate of 7.7%, a significant reduction of the initial 50% toll. South Africans have been attending St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town to pay tribute to Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, who died on Sunday. Local residents remembered Tutu's work on the reconciliation of a country that still had the open wounds from the damages caused by a segregating and repressive minority. One of the visitors who paid his respects to the icon said, "He taught us it doesn't matter what your differences were, you can work through it." The cleric dies on Sunday at 90 years of age at the Oasis Frail Care Center in Cape Town after several hospitalizations since 2015 related to prostate cancer, illness diagnosed to him in 1997. Tutu will be given a Category 1 state funeral with religious rites, which will be held on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2022.
I think his legacy will live on forever because he built what we have today. The way that I remember the arch is, I was a child when it was apartheid, and I remember seeing the sad things on TV, right? And after that, people could have turned around and retaliated to do the same injustice again, whereas the arch didn't let that be.
I think he taught us how to treat people. He taught us, doesn't matter what your differences were, you can work through it, and he stood up for everyone regardless. He never asked for anything for himself, and he was our moral compass, as everyone is saying. And he went through lots of battles himself and did it with absolute grace. So we are very sad to lose him, but very glad he's in no pain anymore.
Israel carried out a missile strike on Tuesday against a container depot in the Syrian port city of Latakia. According to the state agency ZANA, a military source in the Arab country stated that around 3:21 a.m. local time, Israeli forces attacked with missiles from deep in the Mediterranean, west of Latakia, targeting the container yard at the commercial port. The Israeli aggression caused fires at the site and left extensive material damage, and work is still underway to extinguish the flames. The Israeli regime frequently launches missile attacks against targets in Syria. On December 7th, the port of Latakia had already been the target of a similar attack. Lebanon's prime minister said on Tuesday that talks with the International Monetary Fund could reach the final formula for an agreement before the end of February. Najib Mitaki made the comments during a news conference in Beirut, hours after President Michel Aoun called for an end to the 11-week government deadlock undermining state institutions.
Concerning the communication with the Monetary Fund, we are in contact with the IMF and we are currently doing our homework. We're doing what needs to be done from our side. Those will come around the 15th of January in the middle of next month. We will have our first meetings to review everything we have done, what they approve and what we will reach. After that, we will continue the work we have to do. They will come back again maybe at the end of January or the beginning of February to reach the final formula for the agreement. Then we will announce to the Lebanese people the reality of what we will have.
And the mummy of a former Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep I has given up some of its secrets at last. Scientists have been able to uncover what was hidden under the mummy's wrappings and mask using state-of-the-art technology. They had remained unwrapped until Egyptologist Zahi Hawass and Cairo University professor Sahar Salim launched an in-depth study. The non-invasive research enabled them to finally reveal Amenhotep's face and work out his age and health at the time of his death. Talking about the study, Hawass said the findings were a major important discovery. The famed archaeologist added that it showed how technology could help unravel the secrets of Egypt's past.
The mummy was covered with a mask. Never anyone saw the face. But with new technology, we're able to reveal many secrets about the mummy. Number one, he died in the age of 35. We found the brain inside the mummy, and this will never happen. It happened with other mummies, the brain is there. And also at the same time, we found that the mummy was mummified Osiris style. This is the first time. But all the mummies after that had the same style. We found out he died in the age of 35, but he was healthy. Then maybe he had a heart attack, because there is no evidence of any diseases that Amenhotep I had.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.